The Authors Forum exists to inspire success. We will talk with authors and others in the publishing industry to bring you essentials and advice. Dr. Veronica Esagui is your host for Authors Forum.
Okay. All She Ever Wanted, it's a fiction book, and there are many subjects such as racism, friendship between genders, family dynamics, and betrayal. Did you draw those experiences from your own life, or how did that come about?
Well, of course I did. Every writer draws experiences from their own life in some way or the other. It may not be direct, it may be very indirect, or it may be that it's from an observation, not from an actual experience. But this book very much encompasses things I've witnessed, things I've experienced, and in some ways things I made up around things that happened that maybe didn't turn out the way they did in the book. So maybe I tweaked it a little bit to make it more interesting for the book.
Because as I was reading your book, I found that a lot of the things that I read about, I could connect with life itself. To me, it was very real. I know it's a fiction book, but it was almost like I was reading something historical, and it was true, you know. So I was very moved. I couldn't put that book down all the way through. It was just amazing. And one of the things that I noticed, there has a friendship between you, the stories between the friendship between an African-American male and a Caucasian female. So why did you choose that? Why did you write that book?
Well, I chose that friendship, I think is the question you're asking. I chose that friendship because I found it interesting, and also because that is something that in some ways I did experience in college. I had 3 different really good friends who were African American and male. And some characteristics from each of those went into the character Darren in the book. And while it's not any of them, and it could never be even conceived to be any of them or perceived to be any of them, I drew on those experiences to create the character, and I wanted to explore how that friendship was, how it grew and how it was impacted by the people around it in the book. And this went into just looking at racism, and I drew on experiences of being in the mall or being out with my African American friends and having names shouted at us and being called things and having dirty looks given. And at some points, even my reactions where my friends would be like, stop, stop. You need to back off, leave it alone, because they're gonna come after me, not you. And feeling like, that's not right, I'm the one who's saying something to them.
Did you, I'm just curious, something came to my mind just now in the sense of, you've traveled in the world, you traveled in some parts of the world, right? Were you in certain areas where you were the minority ever?
Oh, yes.
And did you experience that same feeling towards you, or is it just here in the United States that you felt more of a racism?
Well, I think racism exists throughout the world. And there were places where I definitely knew that I wasn't a part of that culture. I wasn't a part of the people or the language. I find language to be the bigger barrier when you leave the United States. Because when people are speaking around you and you can't understand what's being said, you really feel left out. Even when you're in a situation where everyone is trying to include you, you still feel left out in that situation.
Yeah, I always encourage people that travel to a country to at least learn the basic words, just so they, at least they can feel that you're trying your best to make a connection with them, versus saying, I'm from America and I only speak English, so you better speak English, you know. So, anyway.
We are a little spoiled too, because most countries do teach English, whereas the U.S. doesn't necessarily teach foreign languages as often.
One of the things I found, at times Victoria, our main character, appears rather cold and unapproachable. Did you feel readers may think that do you think they're going to like her?
I think that I find her likable, and I enjoy her character. She has a very set of values that is hers and hers alone, and she sticks to those values, and she has certain goals that she wants in life, and she's not going to let anyone get in her way. So I tend to find her more determined than cold and unapproachable. But I have had people say that about her, and I try to just encourage people to read her with an open mind.
Because I personally found her to be very strong and a very powerful person to be. After I read the book, I wondered, who is she going to be after that? You know, I could see where. I mean, she becomes a powerful lady in the sense of the world in a business. But what becomes of her? Did she ever get married? Does she ever going to have a family, or she's going to be? She's very powerful in her beliefs and her sense of who she is, and I admire that on her. Anyway, the York farm that you talk about in the book sounds very idyllic. Do you think there's such a place? I mean, do you have any concerns that someone might think that's too good to be true?
I think that, well, I don't find it that idyllic. There's a lot of hard work on the farm.
Yeah.
In Victoria's mind, it is very idyllic because it is so different from her own upbringing. The atmosphere on the farm is about family and about love and about acceptance. And for Victoria, she has grown up where everything is about status and money and ambition and power. Not that she comes from a powerful family, but that's what has been instilled in her mind as being important. And so for me, I think that for Victoria, it was an idyllic place, but I didn't see it that way.
Did you mentioned earlier about your grandfather's farm? Did you find there was a connection? Did you bring some memories from that time in your life into the book? Did that influence your writing about the farm?
In many ways it did. My grandparents were wonderful people, and they had the kind of home where they never locked a door, and everyone just walked in. You'd open the door and yell, "Hey, Doc, hey, Glenn, you home?" And just walk on in, have a seat, and have a cup of coffee, join in whatever work was being done. It was the kind of place where people felt accepted and loved and cherished, and where people felt like coming back. It felt like home to anyone who came into their home. And I think that very much influenced the farm in
The
this
York
book
family.
and All She Ever Wanted.
Yeah, because as I was reading the book, I'm like, I'd like to go there. Just spend maybe a week or weekend, you know? What was the most difficult scene you found at writing on All She Ever Wanted?
Well, I don't want to give the book away.
Right.
But it's fairly obvious from the beginning of the book that something has happened that fractured the friendship between Darren and Victoria. And writing the scene where that fracture occurred was devastating for me. After I wrote it, it took me a week to get back to writing. So that was the hardest scene to write.
I believe that book. Because that's how I felt when I read it. I'm like, no, I can't be, you know, but you are the author, and you're the one that pours the heart out and creates that, you know, those characters. And you did an incredible job of putting a heart into all the characters, and the reader becomes attached to them. And so that's just amazing, excellent job. Victoria has several unsuccessful attempts at romantic relationships throughout the book. Particularly interesting is when she confronts the lover she's discovered is married in front of his wife. Now, why did you decide to end the relationship in that way?
Well, because I think every woman has dreamed about doing that to some guy, even if he wasn't married, even if she found out that he just had another girlfriend or whatever. I think that every woman has dreamed of doing that. And so putting that in fiction, because how many of us honestly would actually have the guts to do it? I thought putting it into fiction was just a beautiful way to explore how that could possibly happen.
Yes, I was going, hooray, hooray, you did it, you did it.
Well, that was the goal.
Get away with it.